Calvin Dekker, I'm with CodaBears. I'm going to go over the classic to kinetic conversion tool. And it's called conversion number 180. And I've run across an awful lot of people that don't know it exists out there. And this takes your basic customizations that were developed in Classic and allows you to migrate these up to Kinetic. I got way too many screens running today here. So under the data conversion maintenance, this is conversion program number 180. So in Epicor, we have the conversion workbench. I'll go ahead and pull that over here. Right up at the top, we have the user run available conversions, and they have this conversion 1180. When we click on this, I started out in Kinetic, trying to be all cool and new. And the screen turned around and opened in Classic. It's still in Classic, which is not a problem, but it opens here and I have the ability to run the conversion either from the workbench, or when I click on it, I can see what's going on here inside the program. So this is what ran, go system conversion, where it was, but the status says it completed with errors. So if I look inside this conversion workbench, I'm going to have some additional info. Anything that you develop in a classic customization where you're just adding a basic field or a user field to the screen, or you're adding a row rule, a date picker, laying out the panels, moving things, Epicor base things around, just wiggling their fields onto new panels. Those conversions are going to move directly from the old one to the new version. Wow, I haven't even made it 2 minutes into the presentation here, and I've got a question from Angie. Is this available in the multi-tenant cloud? That I'm not sure. Do we have anybody from multi-tenant cloud that can speak to this? Is this available in that environment? We have someone saying yes, Angie. So this is available, Kevin Barrow say. So any convertible objects, they have to be simple customizations in Classic. If you put C# code behind, if you wrote functions that connect to other data objects that turn around and pull things in, probably not going to automatically convert. If you added dashboards onto your forms, some of those do not easily convert. I did say here, keep it simple. If it's a complex customization, you're not using the tool. It's in its infancy still. This is fresh out the box. One of the difficulties is when it gets converted to Kinetic, finding where it put your customization in Kinetic can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. In versions prior to this, if you put a custom tab on your customization with like your company name or the ID of the project, that will make it much easier because that will show up in the tree view of the Kinetic panels. Embedding things right into Epicor screens and fields that are already laid out may be a little bit more difficult to find, as well as move around with the Application Studio. Dashboards. Classic dashboards can be converted to Kinetic dashboards, and you can have some customized dashboard assemblies that will turn around and move over. We'll talk about the dashboard conversion here towards the end. I was originally focusing on the data conversions and having the lovely tool that we have now to automatically convert them. So all you have to do with this conversion process is submit the process when you pull this up. So up on the actions menu, I can submit this process and it's going to run. It's very fast, comes back and lets you know. Now, if you have 200 customizations in your system, like there are a few people on this meeting do, it may take a little longer to run that conversion. The conversion log is going to tell us what happened, what made it, what didn't, what had errors. So when you go through the conversion log, take a look at what did and didn't make it. So here on my ABC code, I see this is not supported. There's a row rule referenced on the form that doesn't make it across the conversion.
Hey, Calvin, we do have another question. Where is data conversion maintenance in the menu structure?
Let me go ahead and cheat here. Yeah. How about conversion? So here's our conversion workbench under mass regeneration, conversion workbench. That's going to open the conversion workbench, and when I select one, that's what opens the data conversion maintenance. I wasn't sure if they had data conversion direct on the menu or if you had to go through the conversion workbench. You need to go through the conversion workbench to get there.
And Matt is saying, I might have missed it, but does this work for E10 to E11?
Yes. So moving your customizations from 10 to 11 is what this is all about. After the process is submitted and the conversion runs, it's going to tell us what failed and what didn't. So access is not allowed for this. So this customization failed due to a security issue. All the conversions that ran, that it went through, should be on the list here. So we should see these are the conversions that ran from the conversion maintenance. I can run more than just 180. I can run others if I need. But for focusing for the classic to kinetic conversion, we're just running this one here. Even though I ran this, I can go back and submit it again. So after I go into classic mode, fix my form, remove the offending field, fix the security issue, I can always come back in here and resubmit it. And we should see that it moved over to, hey, this made it. It was able to do it. Or, hey, here's the info, couldn't do it.
Got a couple more for you, Calvin.
Fire away.
From David, can you filter which customizations you want to convert, or is it an all or nothing? And could you end up with partial conversions if it errors?
First question, can I do all or nothing, or can I pick only one? Unfortunately, right now, it's an all or nothing. This runs against all customizations that you have out in your system. Unfortunate for some people that have upgraded over the years, they have more than a few hard entry customizations. It's going to try and upgrade each one of them. If you have multiples that are not deployed to menus or not in use, it's best practice to export those customizations. When you run your data migrations, just doing an upgrade from 10 to 11 to 22 to 23, it's going to turn around and try and upgrade all of your conversions. And that's a potential hiccup during the migration. If you're not using it, remove it from the system so that the system doesn't try to migrate something you don't even use anymore. Now, the second half of that question for David, you will not end up with a partial conversion. You're not going to get a half functional solution. It either passes or it fails. It doesn't say, okay, we'll upgrade these fields, but we're not going to do these.
All right.
For Kevin, we'll go ahead and update that here. I just saw from Angie, the conversion workbench is not available in multi-tenant. I wouldn't think that multi-tenant, because when you run a conversion program, you're generally affecting the whole database, not just your little piece of the pie.
Okay, and from Kim White, is this just for upgrading from 10 at Kinetic? Could we move a dashboard from E9 or 10 to Kinetic? Or would that just be too messy and best to recreate from scratch? Our current upgrade, we are going vanilla with no customizations.
Actually, yes. If you turn around and ran your Epicor 9 dashboards and they came successfully over to 10 or Kinetic, you can do that with the dashboard conversion if they're simple. And by simple, I mean it has a tracker, it has a BAQ, and maybe a chart view. Running those is a little more tricky with the dashboards, but simple, just here's my BAQ, it's a grid list view, and here's my tracker filter. Those are going to turn around and migrate for you. So pulling those from 9 to 10 and then to Kinetic, or from 9 to Kinetic, that should not be a problem. Okay. Generally, I'm going to say if it's just a BAQ, you're going to manually create it much quicker than going through the conversion process. Okay, next question out here.
Neil Ford, what language is Kinetic going to? I know it's browser-based, but when we went from E9 to E10, it went from maybe C code to C#. Can we still use C# for custom code?
Yeah, kind of. Okay, how do you explain that one?
So the Kinetic interface,
you can use C# in your functions, but the client is no longer a smart client. The processing is all done on the server. So you would need to have the UI on the client send the information back to the server function to process, to send back the data to redisplay on the client. So while the function is C#, you're not putting C# code behind your screen like you did in earlier versions. Does that make sense, Fred?
Yeah, I would say C# is where you can use that for your functions and BPMs. But on the client side, you're going to stick with the widgets that you're going to find in Application Studio. Some of that you can use JavaScript in, but it kind of depends on what you're doing and what control you're on.
Correct. So on the Kinetic UI, when you're in Application Studio, it's kind of a funky hybrid of Java, Epicor something. I don't know what you call that language, and some of the fields and things.
Yeah, JavaScript Angular.
Yep, but I would say that C# is still the backbone for custom code behind BPMs and functions. Now, the functions can also be built with the drag and drop, kind of like method and data directives were. I knew Matt was going to throw this out there. He threw it at me on Monday. Once the customization is fixed, can you export it? Yes. You can export any of your files through a solution and then import that into the next version. So if you do your first upgrade to a version of Kinetic, go in and fix your customizations, export these into a solution. When you do your final migration, just import that solution file and you don't have to go ahead and rebuild it.
And a note on that, at least the version of Kinetic I was using, I don't remember which one, you can't export straight from Application Studio. You can only do it through Workbench, Solution Workbench.
Yep. The layers are not necessarily exportable through the Application Studio, but you have to pick the program and the layer in Solution Management or Workbench. Now, Matt, to your question that you didn't specify in the chat window, I'm going to go ahead and answer because it's right in line with it. This is the first version of the application that converts programs. This is awesome. The drawback is not every customization you have in your system will necessarily show up here. So take it with a grain of salt. When you go through this list, I may have 50 customizations it only reported the handful that it was able to look at and evaluate. Those that it couldn't even open, kick straight to the curb. They don't even show up in the audit trail or the log. And they won't upgrade either. So I kind of got an answer for you from Monday's question, Matt, but it's not the answer that I wanted. It's in its infancy. This is the first time it's really been rolled out. I'm sure we'll see new things in 23.
And from Barry, similar question to that was for custom dashboards once worked on, is it possible to export these as a solution similar to adding built custom dashboards to a solution on E10?
100% dashboards you can already export. You can also include the BAQs behind it and put it as an entire dashboard file, which has all of the information contained in one. I'm just not a fan. You can't open the DBD, I think is the file extension, and look at it in Notepad because it's not like a list of items, it's encrypted. But in Kinetic, you then just import that dashboard file in. You do have to have developer and I believe advanced dashboard to be able to pull those in.
And then from Mark, what version introduced the conversion tool that you're talking about, conversion 180?
2.2. So 22. I don't remember seeing this in 21. I believe this came out in 22, and I'm not sure if it was in 22. I would say it was 22.1. Let me check what version I'm in right here. Okay, we're in 22.2. I'm not sure if it was in 22.1.
And from Bryce, can product configurators be exported from E10 and imported to Kinetic? Would those use this conversion tool too?
How do you answer that? Product configurator that was in version 10 is getting an overhaul and going to the KB Max CPQ. So I'm not 100% sure if you would turn around and export that and import it, because the UIs and the screens built with the product configurator in 10.2 and earlier, not necessarily the product configurator that's going to be moving forward with the CPQ. So I don't know as if they're going to write conversion tools for those. I believe the configurator is being maintained for the inspection plans since they built the entire enhanced quality off of the product configurator tool. But as far as for sales and integrations, I believe they're requesting people move over to the CPQ KB Max tool.
Okay. And Aaron, for customizations that don't even appear in data conversion maintenance conversion log, will we need to recreate those totally using App Studio to get them to show up in this list? Is the end goal to have all customizations appear in this list to ensure they get upgraded?
No, you don't have to use this tool to upgrade anything you build in 22 or in Kinetic. So if you build it in App Studio, you don't need to convert it from Classic to Kinetic because you're already there.
And David Erickson says they're on 20.
I'm sorry, Fred, for Aaron, everything does have to be manually created. If it doesn't go through this, we'll have to create it manually in the software. Okay, we have an answer. David Erickson has found it in 21.2.
And then from Andres, do these then show as Kinetic customization layer in App Studio? And will you be showing that?
This is the good thing. Yes, Andres, it will show up. So when you do these conversions, you can go ahead and switch to that layer and be able to pull those up. Sorry, I clicked on my video here when trying to make sure that, yes, my monitor is right. So the conversion tool, you can go ahead and resubmit until you get all of them to go, or eventually at some point, you're just gonna say, screw it, I'll write these in Kinetic myself and then stop using this tool to convert. Once you're all up to Kinetic, really don't need this anymore. I would say if you go in and build a solution in Kinetic manually, go back to the classic, export that solution so that it doesn't show for you to try and upgrade it accidentally again. You've already moved it. Ideally, you would like this conversion log to have nothing in it. You know everything has been moved over and you don't have any complaining users. Now, when you run a conversion or apply an upgrade from Epicor and migrate your database, this conversion 180 is automatically run as part of that migration. So they're going to try and move these automatically for you. It's not something that, oh, I have to go in and do it manually. When you migrate between patches or versions, they're going to run this conversion and see if they can fix it. As fixes are applied to this tool and they're able to migrate more and more things, as you apply patches and upgrades, this goes along with it. Nice thing? Yes. It's still in its beginning, but at least we don't have to build everything manually all from scratch. So I turned around, did the descending sort. I like to see what are my major errors, what are the things, so that I knew which ones to go fix. And then it was a case of just read through the messages to make sure that, yes, I'm catching everything. I didn't miss something. It is only going to find the first error. That doesn't mean that if you run this submission again, you fixed the whole form. That just means you found the one that broke it and it stopped working on it. This is not a list of errors that it finds, it's the first one it found. You would have to fix this, rerun it. You may get another error message here in the conversion log, then you have to address that one. So this may be something you need to run multiple times. The classic customization, I just went out for my little sample and I just grabbed the AR invoice entry, I grabbed the group tab, I went to the detail, and I just threw a pretty little field label and a text box out here. And I wanted to make sure that the conversion worked for today's demo. So I put it behind the group, I put it behind the detail, then I put my field here. Once I did this, I turned around, ran quickly over to that conversion workbench, ran 180 and said, did it come over? Took a look at this in the new application studio. I was like, wow, it showed up, but it was under my group pullout panel, which is not the place in App Studio I would have thought it would have gone to. But it did add the field here down to the bottom, and it just gave it my label, and my field added it to the end. So did it convert it? Yes. Did it put it where I think it would? Oh, no. My mistake. I should have put that field and label on a custom tab so that when it upgraded, it would be on that panel. The tab would get turned to a panel. I would find it there then. I wouldn't have to go hunting for the item in the application studio tree. Did I answer that question? I thought I saw a question in the window, but it disappeared. So hopefully someone hit it.
You're good.
Awesome. So when I put that out here, it's going to show up. I'll have my properties. My layer got converted. Emug test 1 was what was created. That was the name of my customization. It created the layer, put the field out there, and now, yep, I have access to all the properties and all of the methods behind it. Custom code behind this object in Classic is probably going to cause an error. So you'd have to rewrite that or convert it to a function to wire it back in and make it work. If it was just bound to a user-defined field, that comes with the conversion automatically. So if you added just custom fields to track info, those are going to migrate directly over. So then I went down to the lines tab in AR invoice entry and I threw one down here inside the middle. So I went to the line tab, then I went to the detail tab, and I added it right in the middle. Now, there is no grouping on this form where you'll see in Epicor little lines around a grouping of fields. There's nothing on the line tab that has these groups. So it was a fun thing of where did it put it. When I ran the conversion, went back in, took a look at it, it created a whole new section way at the bottom of the panel. Now, the nice thing about Epicor in Kinetic versus Classic, if you tried to copy a field from one grouping to another, you couldn't, because the tool was bound to the grouping that it was in. That's no longer the case in Kinetic. I can right-click, copy this field, or cut it, paste it into another area, and redo my layout. That is a nice feature in Kinetic, that I don't have to delete it, recreate it where I want it, and then bind it back to the data. I can move the whole object around. But it was fun trying to figure out where it put it. I was looking through all of my fields up here because I had it nicely nested in between, and it threw it all the way to the bottom. If your screen has a lot of panels, like the AR invoice detail or the quoting screen, you're going to be hunting for a little while to find out where it put it. So my Kinetic dashboards also have a dashboard maintenance. So inside Epicor's dashboard maintenance, we kind of hit the Classic to Kinetic conversion for UI. The dashboards is our next section here for today. You end up retrieving the dashboard in dashboard maintenance. Now, you do have to be a developer, and you have to be an advanced developer. On the actions, we can run, modify, and deploy the UI. Let me see if we can get to that screen here. I got to move my panelist list out of the way here. So when you are in the dashboard, you're going to go up to Tools and Deploy. On the Deploy, there are preview buttons for the Classic application, and there are preview buttons for the application. It doesn't say Kinetic, it just says application. All of the training videos up on ERP videos all reference an item that doesn't exist on the screen. All of the help documents reference a field called Preview Kinetic button. This button doesn't exist. It's called Generate Application. That will go ahead and take the dashboard and attempt to convert it into a Kinetic application that you can now use instead of the Classic dashboard. This was a little bit of fun. It took about 15 minutes to realize this button doesn't exist anywhere. Let's go find what it's really called. The Generate Application is what they ended up moving it to. Application by default is now a Kinetic application. So the Kinetic dashboards are fairly simple. There's not a whole lot going on with their conversion. As long as they were built using the standard tools, you didn't deploy your dashboard to an assembly and then go in and customize the assembly, these should migrate up to Kinetic. They're just running BAQs and passing data back and forth like Bruce was showing us earlier. It can be as advanced as you want. The framework of the BAQs and the dashboards are still the same. It's just on the Kinetic UI now. And I had mentioned earlier, I know we're going to finish way ahead of schedule, so we have time for some Q&A here. Let me go ahead and see if we can get there. Yes, we can. Any questions on how to do the conversion? Have I put everyone to sleep?
I think you did. Now, if anybody's got some follow-up questions, go ahead and type them into the questions area and we'll get them answered for you. As well, if you've got something for Stump the Chump, we can take that as well.
So again, just running the conversion program, going ahead and doing the submit pulls back the info. And I've got a question here. Can I pull up a Kinetic dashboard preview? Sure enough, we'll give that a shot here. Okay. And it is different than dashboard. Dashboard maintenance is where you need to do the Kinetic conversions from. So we'll pull up one of the, well, I guess there's a whole lot of deployed dashboards here in this database. When I go up to my actions menu, I can run, modify, deploy the UI application, which is where I want to deploy my application. And I'm not seeing my pop-up window show up here. Okay, it's already there. It may already complain about this already being done. Back to what Bruce said, I'm gonna risk it here. We're gonna go hunt for one, make a copy of it, and try and upgrade it. Pull up my mod. Okay. We're gonna give a shot. It's in Epicor 03. Before we check the Epicor perform. I don't always trust that the screens stay in sync, so we're gonna close those out. What looks like a good one here that would have some data. CRM's not gonna. Let's bring our item update dashboard over. Okay, it's working. It's pulling back data for us. When I go to deploy the dashboard, I have the option to preview the application again or classic. If I do preview the application, this is what the dashboard should look like in Kinetic. When I say generate, okay, this dashboard already existed too, but this would allow you to turn around and convert it to a Kinetic dashboard, then be able to add it to the menus. So converting a dashboard that's out there that's simple like this, where it's just a search panel and a list of data, these are definitely going to move over easy. It's the ones that you customize or add a lot of bells and whistles to that run the risk of conversion. Again, once you do your migration up to Kinetic, or you're going to try and convert these, go in and just run them. Find out how much work you have to do the fixing. But I would definitely say use the conversion tool at least once to try and get the stuff migrated up. Sure, go ahead and move it up to a Kinetic Studio. Done. What it's going to look like is, yeah, that's fine. And my whole dashboard has been kineticized. I have my filter, I have my arrow, I have my tools or the options that I can do to this. I can move it full screen. So everything's going to move over. A BAQ and a dashboard are built using the system tools. When they do the upgrade, these should move over directly. Does that answer the question? I don't see who the question was from anymore, Fred.
I believe it does, yes. You're fine.
Okay. I got another question from Barry Higgins. If something is developed elsewhere in another Epicor 11 environment, can the deployed app be exported as a solution? If so, what is this labeled as in Solution Workbench? When you create a Solution Workbench item, give me 1 second here. I'm going to close a few windows out. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. I am the #1 offender of leaving 1 million Epicor windows open, so I will try and keep myself a little cleaner here today. So when I'm in Solution Workbench building a solution, I have to create a new, give it a name, add the items to the solution, then export it. It's saved as that solution name. When I go into the other Epicor 11 instance, I would then turn around and go Actions, Import, or Install Solution, and pick that solution file that got created.
I think he's asking, when you click Add to Solution, what is the element that he's looking for? Is it still a customization?
A customization would be a layer. A dashboard would be under the dashboard. So we went over the 2 different items.
Okay.
Let's see if we can go find that. Let's try and hit new first.
If you want, there's a test customization in that environment, I think.
Okay, I'll make one.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Really? Okay. Some screens autosave, others don't. Now, yeah, you should give it a description and notes about what all you're doing. Dashboards will be found here with dashboard definitions. When you do a build of a dashboard from a dashboard, it allows you and prompts you, do you want the BAQs? Do you want the other things with it? When you do it here through solution management, you have to go pick all the things manually. So Kinetic custom layers, here we go. If you want, you can include personalizations. I generally don't tell people to do that because if they personalize the screen and you modified the screen layout, that personalization may not plug in and work for you.
Okay. Next one from Kevin. How are classic customizations related to generated kinetic conversions?
They would have the same name. Hold on 1 second. Epicor's got a window open where I can't see it. It's behind GoToMeeting. Okay, what was that question again? How are classic customizations related to generated kinetic? They're the same name. The layer becomes the name of what the customization was.
Okay.
So in
And
my example, I called it emug test. When it converted to a layer, the layer was called emug test.
from James, I have no errors in conversion maintenance, but a lot of warnings about changed properties of existing controls. How worried for these should I be?
As long as the screen opens in the application studio or it loads in the kinetic interface, I'm going to say run with it. Same thing in classic mode. The system would give you warnings. Oh, this field's behind something else, or you can't see this object. Didn't stop you from using it. It just gave you the warning. Same thing moving forward.
Okay. From Benjamin, once Kinetic is forced, where are the new dashboards made? Will it still be dashboard maintenance? So I think he's talking about creating new dashboards after you've got your other ones converted.
Yes, but I don't think the dashboard tool is converted 100% to kinetic yet. Can anybody answer that one? Because when I go into dashboard maintenance, there's no option to go to a kinetic version. There are a handful of screens like the data conversion, the conversion workbench opens in kinetic, but when you go to do the data conversion to run number 180, that opens in classic mode. There isn't a kinetic screen for it yet.
I'm not seeing anybody responding, so we'll move on to the next one. From David, is there a mass dashboard conversion tool?
That would be nice, but I'm not going to say it's going to work great. If I go into the dashboard or like customization maintenance, I can say verify all, force all, validate all. I have not found that for dashboards to convert all of them, because when you're in dashboard maintenance, you have to open them one at a time. It doesn't allow you to necessarily pull 10 back and then tab through
All right. From Carl, how can a tracker customization with buttons or filters be built in Kinetic?
Exact same way. You would just put a layer on top of the tracker customization, add your button, add your customizations. Your buttons would have events behind them. Objects would be tied back to the database or to other screen objects that are already displayed. There was a question for the chump that we'll go over later, but they were asking how to relay out the form so that data entry can go a whole lot easier. In the App Studio, it's much easier to drag those pieces around and put them the way that your user's going to manage them or interface with them. So we'll cover that part this afternoon in the Stump the Chump. But that I at least like, because now I can move the objects around in Application Studio without having to delete them and manually remember all the properties and recreate
them. From Kevin, this relates to his previous question on how are Kinetic and Classic forms related once they go through the conversion. So they don't have any other connection other than the name. It's not like one is shows up connected to the other or anything like that.
They each have to have a different name. Whoops, I just closed out of Epicor. They have to have a differing name to be saved in Kinetic. So
no, he means, is there a relationship between your Classic customization and when you've run the conversion, it has the same name, but there's no other connection between those two. They can be run independently. They get edited independently.
Correct. The two are not connected anymore at that point. Classic has to be maintained using the Classic UI. Application Studio is the one that maintains the Kinetic version. So in essence, you're creating a second customization there.
And for Mike, we have a dashboard with trackers. I don't see the trackers showing up in the Kinetic versions. Any ideas?
That I'd have to take a look. The one that I ran, the tracker search ended up behind the filter button. So where I turned around had those search fields, those went over to the filter button on the top right of the dashboard. Hold on 1 second, guys. I love the bug in Windows 11 that when you open a file explorer, you have to drill multiple times down if you want to get past the zip file issue. So searching file trees is really rough in 11 now. Okay, so when I'm in that dashboard maintenance, crap, we went back to Epicor 6. Let's go to the other one. And what was, we had the item updater. So when I turn around and, will it run the default as Kinetic now? I'm gonna learn something myself here. This is what the old one would look like in Classic. Let me go ahead and so my part and my description, I believe, are up here behind my filter. So I can turn around and filter on any of these in the dashboard. Does that answer your question, Mike? So you're not going to see like a separate panel with the fields for the filter?
Hang 10, somebody's got a question, I think. Joe Urbauer, I'm going to unmute you here. If you want to unmute yourself, you have your hand raised. Are you there, Joe? Okay, Joe may not be, may have stepped away.
Joe also had audio issues connecting with his microphone from home, Karen said.
Yep. So we'll leave that out there for a moment. Karen.
Joe, if you can, go ahead and put the question in the questions panel. We'll go ahead and read the question to everybody.
All right. From Karen, once we get a customization converted to Kinetic, how do we make that the default so the Classic doesn't get used any longer? That's in your menu maintenance, isn't it?
You got it. Let me get out of here. Remember, don't leave a billion things open. Was I in menu maintenance recently? Yes. And I realize that is the laziest of Epicor searching, is not typing it in, just search through the recent and hope you were there. So when you're in menu maintenance and I want to go ahead and put like this item updater out on the menu, I would turn around and add it to the menu as an item, but add it as a Kinetic item, then go to the Epicor Classic one and disable it. Now the users aren't going to get to it anymore. Now, if you still have a process calling, hold on, let me collapse here. If I still have a process calling that says go open the Classic one, they're still going to get to it. So make sure that you didn't add a process calling to that would bypass the Kinetic that you're deploying.
Okay. From Robert, Conversion Workbench, how do I find a customization done in 2021 Classic? That would still show up as a Classic
It should show up
and
as
to
a
be converted.
classic tool for conversion in the 180. Now, if it can't convert it, it's not going to show up in that log. So you can still build customizations in the classic layer in 22 and 21 that aren't going to show up in the conversion because they're too complex. Just because you develop it in 21 or 22 doesn't mean it's convertible.
And Kevin says dashboard maintenance has a deploy all UI applications in the cloud. So
I
that might
haven't
be
gotten
able
it
to
to
be
work
used.
for all. Because I have to go into each one by one, modify them, go up to the action, go to the deploy, and then select either classic or kinetic. So I have not gotten the deploy all to work. I still have to do them one by one, Kevin.
Okay, and then Mike, this is back on his earlier tracker question. It doesn't match what we have in the tracker. Mike,
So
I'm going to
you
try and
have,
unmute. Mike, I unmuted you in case you want to speak up on this one.
Yeah, I just found it. It's in the, if you go to the upper, the grid, the dot for the grid, it does show the tracker as
okay.
a magnifying glass or whatever.
Awesome. Glad you found it.
Hey, we have an answer.
Sometimes it takes a while to find those things. And our last question so far, until somebody else types in.
Not that
from
one, the
Carl.
down to the other with the grid one there. There you go. Search part, see where it says search, press 5, F5.
I'm going to mute you again here, Mike.
Yay!
Okay, from Carl, we've got feedback on an earlier question. If a tracker didn't convert, the question needs to be asked, was it really a tracker or was it a customization built on top of the dashboard, and the customization now needs to be converted on that dashboard?
Bingo. So like I had mentioned earlier, if it's published as a runtime, you can't customize it. If it's published as an assembly, you can customize it. So if the tracker was put onto the menu as an assembly or its own DLL, that can be customized. When you click on it and says, downloading from database, please wait, or it's pulling down the fresh copy, that's not a DLL. That one's compiling it on the fly. The one that has the DLL that gets put in the client folder, when you click on it and it opens, that's an assembly that can be customized.
All right, are there any other questions? And as well, if they've got anything for Stump the Chump, just prefix that question with STC. We'll get that added into the session. If you've got other questions for Calvin while we got him, now's a good time to put those in. Otherwise, if we don't have any questions, guess what? It means we got a longer time for lunch. Hurrah!
I love the way you say that. Like, I'm going to disappear for the afternoon. Yeah, not going to happen. Thanks for the offer, but yeah, it's still not going to happen.
All right, we'll give it just a couple more seconds here in case anyone is typing in a question. And as well, like I said, if you've joined the call recently, there will be, the videos will get converted. It usually takes a couple, 3 weeks to get them converted just because of workload, but I'll post them onto the YouTube channel. That link for the YouTube channel is in the chat. I'll also put that out in the minutes, and the minutes will go to anybody who is registered to receive invitations for these virtual meetings. So whether you're on the call or not, you'll get the minutes for that. That'll have links back into the various videos once we get them converted out there. Just don't ask for them tomorrow because, you know, I'm going on vacation. I won't be around for a little bit.
And if they need, the vantageusers.org website has all the preceding minutes of meetings still out on it as well, Fred.
Oh.
I want to say those were prior to 2010, 2008. That
No,
goes back in time.
that still goes back to the Epicor Midwest Users Group, and those archives are only through 2013.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I thought we merged the two sites together, but all right, I'm not seeing any more questions. So we'll take a break here for lunch, a couple minutes early. We'll resume at 12:30 with Karen presenting on bartender and barcoding, different solutions that you can use for barcoding, why you want to do that. All right, everybody have a good lunch, and we will see you at 12:30.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.